Hey everybody, I am your host, Brendan. Welcome to another wonderful episode of Swing Batter. I am joined by your two favorite, numero uno in my book. Todd, how you doing?
I am numero uno.
Your number one son.
That's so great. I speak very limited Spanish due to my days as a waiter at Planet Hollywood. True story.
Good, fun facts, everybody, about numero uno. And of course, the one, the only, the legend, because we aren't here without him. Dad, how you doing?
I'm wonderful, wonderful.
All right, folks. Well, we promised to get into some more Lemieux lists. This is the Lemieux list you don't want to be on. This is the one that you kind of feel bad at the end of the school year. You worked really hard all year long, avoiding teachers, not talking to anyone, and then you get that final report card in paper. If anybody remembers that, in that envelope you had to bring back to your parents. Now everything's emailed, and then you're like, how do I give this to my parents when they're in a good mood? Because when they read it, it ain't going to be a good mood. So we're kind of going to give some report cards out to the worst signings, in our opinion, for 2023. So these were free agents in 2023 that teams thought, this is the guy that's going to take me over the top, that's going to take our team to the next level. Well, we all have our top two, number two and number one of the worst signings. I am going to go first with my number two pick, and he resides in New York. He plays for one of our disappointing New York teams this year in 2023, but it was not the Mets, shockingly. This one is the New York Yankees. Signed him thinking he was going to be a breath that helps them get over the crust, get to the playoffs. They spent a lot of money both on pitching and hitting, had a lot of injuries this year, the Yankees did. But this is Anthony Rizzo. Now, we all liked this signing. I did too. It was a 2-year, $40 million deal. He is not extremely old. He's in his lower 30s. He only played 99 games this year. However, the things that came out to me in comparison to his career stats. So I'm going to give you his career stats first. He typically averages a 263 average. He gets roughly 29 home runs a year, 92 RBIs, 85 runs. So in a very shortened season, and I don't say 99 games, so a little over half of a year played, he batted .244. He hit only 12 home runs as a left-handed ball player in that stadium, 41 RBIs, 45 runs, which means the team as a whole was not hitting. Him losing 20 points in his batting average was significant enough to get $20 million as a surefire person for the New York Yankees. I thought he was a tremendous disappointment for the Yankees. They could have signed several other players to fill that void that would have done better than him, and they get him for another year. Are the injuries that serious? Are the Yankees going to do, the 2024 resurrection? But for 2023, Anthony Rizzo's report card to me is really, really bad, and he ended up number 2 on my list of worst contracts in 2023.
Do you want me to agree with you?
You can agree or disagree. He's my number 2.
So I think everybody was surprised by this. It wasn't like he was in a new environment. He'd been there before. He'd played there before. This seemed like a solid thing. I said it before. I'll say it again. A New Yorker with an Italian last name is in one of two places. It's New York or it's in Florida. This guy, to me, it was obvious he was going to stay with the Yankees because he had a good year. This was surprising, but I think the entire Yankees year was shocking, like dramatically shocking. And I think that there are serious conversations that need to be had with the fact that maybe perhaps the GM is getting a little long in the tooth.
But they just signed him.
Yeah, well, if you look at Brian Cashman, inherited that team in the late 90s that won all those World Series. Like, what has he actually constructed as far as a World Series winning team? Now, granted, he's won some, but he's been now like almost 25 years as the GM.
It's been a long time. The Yankees got hit by the injury bug. They had a couple signings that really got hurt. They had some trades that are just have not worked out. But if we're focusing on contracts in 2023, it's a 2-year, $40 million deal. He's one of the higher paid individuals who is first baseman at $20 million. I mean, I thought it was a good deal at the time. I thought he was going to play very well. I thought he was going to play all 162 games. The fact that he's going to have 100 and the fact that you look at that average, you look at the home runs, I wonder mentally, because I'm a big fan of the sports psychology in the back of their brains, when the Rays jumped out the way that they did and played as well as they did, and the Yankees kind of didn't have it to compete this year, and they just that reflected on the whole team.
Yeah, but I think that there's something happened.
That is my number 2. Dad, any comments on Mr. Anthony?
I'm really surprised he didn't do well. I thought, like most people, he's a natural in New York, and he's played a long time, so you don't think they're going to have that kind of a fall. There are some people who performed exactly like they've done their whole life. Like, may I make reference to Joey Gallo? He just did what he always does, so we shouldn't be surprised. But Rizzo, that surprised me, and I don't know about the whole mental thing, but and he was injured. I don't know if that affected him, but he certainly was a disappointment.
Yeah, you would never expect 12 home runs in a year, even in a 100-game season. 12 home runs with that short porch in left field, that's really shocking. Mm-hmm. So I'm sorry, right field. Yeah, right field. Apology, Yankee fans. So yeah, the short porch and everything that Anthony has going for him. So I mean, to me, that's a pretty shocking development. That's my number 2. Dad, who is your number 2 of the worst contracts on 2023 in your opinion?
I went back and forth on that. I put a guy down for you guys for the sole reason of I don't like him. Okay. He is an insignificant guy. He got hurt in August, so maybe he isn't even qualified. I don't remember on your list, did either of you guys select my favorite, Joey Gallo?
No. Joey Gallo did exactly what, to your point, he did exactly what he's supposed to do.
Well, I picked Ross Stripling,
yes,
a middle reliever. Giants threw $10 million at him. He got injured in August. He won 0 games. He had an ERA of 5.59. And it would seem to me, my criteria is, if we didn't sign this guy and we just like every week brought up a new AAA guy, we probably would have done better, just giving the AAA guys shots at it. And so he certainly didn't do very much. I just looked up Joey Gallo, my favorite, I think all of our favorites, and he had 21 home runs, batted 177, and struck out half of his at-bats. He struck out.
that is
so, and he was worth $11 million, and the Dodgers got J.D. Martinez for 10. So figure that one out.
Well, we know who ended up where, but yeah, Joey Gallo is exactly what Joey Gallo is going to be. I don't understand why teams keep signing him. You would think that, if he's hitting 30, 40 bombs, I get it, but 20 home runs and striking out that much is certainly bad. On to your point, your pick on Ross. I thought, and I know you're number 2, and I think the middle relievers got a lot of attention, especially after the playoffs. If everyone remembers, the San Diego Padres, the Super Padres knocked off the Dodgers in 2022 in the playoffs because of their middle relievers. There were many scenarios where that 3 outs that you needed to get to the next inning, bases loaded, you're in a jam. San Diego performed above and beyond everybody else. They did really great. So there was an emphasis on that. And Ross was supposed to shore that up, and it did not happen for the Giants. And it shows because the Giants are going to end up missing the playoffs this year. Not by a lot. They actually, I thought, did a very good job as far as the season was concerned, but their signings in 2023 really reflect that kind of disappointment. Like over 5 ERA is just not getting it done.
He was a starter?
Yeah. Well, no, and I don't know if he started this year, but he has been starter and middle reliever at different places.
I'm showing that he started 11 games and then came in relief in 10. But last year with Toronto, he was actually a starter with a 3.01 ERA.
Well,
so
really bad. That just showed you.
But Brendan, do you remember at the beginning of the year when you were identifying pitchers, Tyler Anderson was one of them, and we said, hey, look at their stats, and they had a really good year, but that year wasn't the norm, right? That year was outside the norm. So when you look at this guy, he had 1 year like that when he was 28, and then at 32, he had a 3.01 ERA, and then this year comes in at 5.57. Yeah, 5.59, you said? Brutal.
How many years did he get on his deal? Was it a 1 year deal?
You said it was 2 years, right?
I didn't say anything. I don't know.
You said he got a $10 million deal in 2023. I don't know if he got more than 1 year. I would be shocked if he got more than 1 year.
You know, the Giants, interesting. I saw an article toward the end of the season of the Giants were in the running to make a playoff spot. And that article was titled, "Can You Name Two Players on the Giants?" And they really had a bunch of disappointing free agents. They had relative no names, unless you think Jock Peterson's a great player. And they hung in there. And then you had the Padres, who had terrific guys who actually had good years, and they couldn't keep up with the Giants. So it's a craziness of baseball. But it just getting that 2-out hit. I don't care who gets it, a 150 hitter or whatever, getting that 2-out hit to extend an inning, getting that runner at third home when there's less than 2 outs often determines the end of the game and doesn't show up in stats.
Right.
But
Dad, you made a point where you said, yeah, I look at this guy and I wonder if you should have brought up somebody from AAA just to be in relief if you'd be in the same position. As a Mets fan, I can assure you, you would not be.
Well, I want to tell you, I'm watching my favorite team, the Diamondbacks. Baseball's about expectations. My expectation is hoping they could get to 500. I never dreamed they could get into playoffs. They got a decent shot to make the playoffs. And the last month, they have had a turnstile between the AAA team and their team. They're sending them down. I need a new starter in 2 days, bringing a guy up, sending him back down after start. They've been doing this. They has DFA'd, I think, 3 or 4 veterans and just said, go play for someone else, all in the last 2 or 3 weeks trying to get in the playoffs. And miraculously, so far, it's been winning with Scotch tape and bubble gum, but it's working.
Well, the Giants have been accused of that as well. So that's your number 2 is Ross, and Giants signed him, and obviously they're not going to the playoffs, so they're a little disheartened. Not as much money as Mr. Rizzo got, but certainly a very much a disappointment going from Toronto to them. Todd, who is your number 2 for free agent signings of 2023?
So in thinking about this, one of the things that I looked at was, number one, I wanted somebody who signed for multiple years, decent amount of money, but it was like almost a negative WAR, right? Like the wins above replacement player. Like, why am I paying so much money for a guy that basically I could replace with a AAA player? And as great as Cody Bellinger was as a signing, because he's coming in at 17.5 for 1 year. Great signing, kind of a bargain for what he played at. That same team that also signed Dansby Swanson, right, made a bonehead signing when they looked at Yankees pitcher Jameson, Lemieuxs, Italian, and they said, we're going to give this 31-year-old 4 years, $68 million. And what are we going to get out of it? A negative 0.51 WAR. Guy's going to have a 5.05 ERA, a 1.31 WHIP.
Ooh.
8 wins.
Ooh.
8 wins.
And the Cubs have how many wins? They're clearly they're in the playoff hunt at the moment. They're
imagine where they would be if anybody other than Jameson was pitching.
Oh, wow, that's really bad.
And they're stuck with this guy for 4 more years. He's lost 10 games, started 28. His ERA is a full point over his career average of 4.0. It's brutal. The guy had, get this, the guy had 4 games where he allowed no earned runs.
Wow.
4 games. He allowed an
he's-
earned run in 24 games this season. All this for the same price as Cody Bellinger, and you're stuck with him for the next 3 years.
Yeah, you only got Cody for a year. Yeah, that's it's terrible. So I always look at that when you get a longer deal and you kind of get to rest a little bit. You're like, oh, I got this guaranteed money. And I see this with these larger contracts, and you're going to hear one of them from mine, for my top one, where you kind of rest into your, I'm going to get paid regardless. So I always wonder if the first year is a scratch. Like I look at a Trey Turner or a Nimmo, for instance. They weren't terrible, but they weren't great. They weren't what they're supposed to be. Texas Rangers had a lot of that in the first year with Seager, with Marcus, with a lot of these at-bats. They're just pressing. Can a pitcher press? Was the pitcher pressing? Were they trying to do too much? But again, if you look at like Zach and these other pitchers who brought their ERAs down, this guy's ERA is going the wrong way. And you think they would put somebody with him to say, hey, what's happening with this pitcher? We got him for a while. We can't just like throw this guy out.
Listen to these starts in the month of May. This is the month of May. May 4th, 3 innings pitched, 3 earned runs. Gave up a home run. May 9th, 2.2 innings pitched, 4 earned runs, 2 home runs given up. Then on May 15th, he comes in, he pitches for 4.2 innings, gives up 4 earned runs. Then on May 20th, he comes in, pitches 2.1 innings, gives up 6 earned runs, 2 home runs. Then on May 27th, comes in and pitches 4.2 innings, gives up 4 earned runs. What a disaster of a month. Ends the month with an 8.04 ERA.
Holy cow. So he's been battling that down.
When your starter's not going 5 innings, he is killing the bullpen.
Crushing. It was brutal.
He didn't have one quality start all the month of May.
No.
So he was, again, we'll see what happens with him clearly he's brought it down to a 5. And I say brought it down because he had such a horrific May. But
Right.
that is clearly a signing to be on the lookout for their Cubby fans. But for 2023, getting a starting pitcher, that is not what you wanted. I've had many of those starting pitchers that the Diamondbacks have signed that Dad and I have but have had many depressed drinks over. We could have gotten so much better than what we're getting, and it's not getting better. It's getting worse. Like it's just watching a ship sink slowly, and we're paying money to watch it. Like we would literally go get in the stands and go, hey, do you think the ship's not going to sink today? Oh no, it's still sinking. Yep, this pitcher's still bad. So there's
out there playing the violin and the cello, women and children getting in lifeboats.
Very, very bad. Well, there's your number 2 so far. So now let's go to our number 1. That's it. The number 1 worst signings that we have for 2023. I'm going to go first again because I love mine. Everyone talked about him. He was tossed around between team and team, a beloved individual. Everyone couldn't wait to have him on their team. He was going to be a life-changing experience for them, and he talks so much about how great it's going to be part of so many different organizations. And then he ended up signing for the Twins. Carlos Carrera signed with the Twins, was going to get with the Mets. He signed a 6-year, $200 million deal. That's $33.3 million over 6 years. And let's just look at the numbers. He played 135 games, which is not a bad year for him. He did get hurt. He's currently injured at the moment. He probably will not play in the playoffs for the 3-game series they lose. The Twins are going to the playoffs with Joey Gallo and Carlos Carrera. So again, I don't know what the Yankees did, but the Twins are going there. His average and career stats are 272, 27 home runs, 98 RBIs, and 90 runs scored. In 135 games, he's batting .230, 18 home runs, 65 RBIs, and 60 runs scored. This is the first of 6 years. Those numbers are very low. He lost .42 off of his batting average, which is terrible, terrible, terrible. And he played enough games that should have come back up to life. There are players that started really bad. I mentioned Trey Turner. I love him. His average was terrible through the year, and he has brought that average up. He's starting to play like himself. I don't know if Carlos is ever going to play like himself again. This may be a first-year jitter, but he went back to the Twins, so it's not like this is the first time he's played for this team. They know what they're getting. That average depletion is not good. Home run depletion, losing power, not good. He's just not the same player that he was in Houston, and they get him for 5 more seasons after this year. That's my number one 2023 worst signing, again, of a player who played over half of the season, because that's one of the rules we made. We have plenty of players who didn't play at all, that just didn't cut the mustard, but that's my number one, Carlos Correa.
It's almost like he had medical issues that other teams became aware of and passed on.
That's quite possible.
If you took Carlos Correa and combined it with Joey Gallo, not only would you have half of NSYNC, but you would also have Pete Alonso.
Those two players make up Pete Alonso. Yeah, well, if you wrap Carlos Correa around Joey Gallo, he would look like Pete Alonso.
Pete Gallo. Is that the new mutant version that you're creating?
Yes, we're going to call him Pete Gallo, and we just have Carlos Correa give him the center mass of gravity. And that's him. Dad, any opinions or thoughts on the Twins signing of Carlos?
You know, the Giants had him. They didn't like the physical. The Mets came in and took him, and they didn't like the physical. So he ended up going back to the Twins for 6 years, and the physicals were right. This guy is not, his gas tank is almost empty, and the Twins made a huge mistake. And so it's too bad. I like the Twins. I think they're a good organization. It's just that's going to be, I just wonder how many years before they just cut him and just say, we're going to eat the losses and say goodbye to him, as happened here in Arizona when we said goodbye to Rancho Mad Bum Gardner, and just said, you can't pitch, and I know we owe you for 2 years, so we'll just send you the checks in the mail. You go away.
It's almost like Correa's costing them an arm and a leg.
Ooh. We'll see.
I made it funny.
I don't think anyone's going to be as bad as Mr. Davis, Chris Davis of Baltimore. He's certainly highest paid player for Baltimore this year, as he's helping them win by just not being around. So
yeah,
isn't he off somewhere selling specially colored contacts?
He should say he can sell whatever he wants. At the end of the day, I hope he gets a World Series ring if they win.
He doesn't have to do anything. What was the name of that oil company from Houston that was such a big company? They named the stadium after the oil company and they went bankrupt.
Enron?
Enron.
Yeah.
Well,
that wasn't an oil company, but yes, they were.
What did they do?
They just traded power online.
Okay. So I thought about the Twins and Carlos Correa. It's like, you really want to go to work for Enron that's going to solve all your problems, and you find out you got the job. And 3 weeks later, you read about what's happening. That's kind of what the Twins got. They got a job with Enron 3 weeks before they folded.
Well, and again, the one thing the Twins have where my other pick is not going to play in the playoffs. There is a possibility Carlos could play in the playoffs. However, he's hurt right now. So if he doesn't play in the playoffs, it makes the signing even worse. Because when you sign a player, a star, $200 million is a star. You're not giving nobody $200 million. So He is a superstar, and your superstar better play when you need him to play. And those 3 games, if he's not playing and Joey Gallo hits like 5 home runs in those 3 games, everyone's going to love Joey Gallo and he's going to get another contract.
Right.
Because those 3 games is all that matters.
They don't care about the strikeouts.
Not if you're hitting that many home runs in the playoffs.
That's right.
That's my number one. Dad, do you have your number one, or Todd, who would like to go first?
Well, I think mine's a lay down. We saw it coming. We rarely get everyone saying something that comes true. And we nailed this one. First of all, the team that signed him is our favorite team for signing losers. It's the Angels.
Yes, the Angels.
They stepped up and they signed Tyler Anderson of the Dodgers, who had a great year with the Dodgers. And then we looked at this guy, and it's like, a horse that's lost every race, but he won the last one. Okay. So I'm going to bet on this horse. Tyler Anderson had one good year. And so the Angels just bit. I wrote down that they paid $13 million this year, but it's more than that with the whole package. I don't know what it is.
I believe it's a 3-year deal, if I remember correctly. 3 years, 13.3, $40 million for the.
So that's a guy who went 6-6 with a 543 earned run average. I have a baseball game that these guys know about called APBA, and they give the pitchers ratings, and it's A through D. Tyler Anderson was a D the whole year long, the easiest pitcher to hit against, and they paid big money. And the thing that makes it funny and why it's so easy is every one of us said, I don't like this for 2 reasons. One good year and the Angels, and we were right.
And if Tampa, for the record, Tampa's biggest signing ever was a $40 million deal in the offseason. That was this 2023. And he ended up in my number 1 of the best signings, which was because he just shocked everyone with how much.
We panned that.
He did
it was
so much better. He did so much better than he ever done in his career. Tyler Anderson was like, his agent was like, we need to get you paid. And he did a great job for the Dodgers.
He made one call to the Angels.
He's like, see how good I am on the Dodgers? I don't know. Maybe it's the uniform. Maybe it's the uniform, the pride of the uniform.
I thought the biggest problem with the Angels was Billy Epler, but he doesn't even work there anymore, and they're still acting like maroons, as Bugs Bunny would say.
The Angels are ending the year with Trout not playing. They shut him down. They shut down Ohtani. Anderson's still playing, thank God. That team is just a nightmare. Just a nightmare.
Is there a more disappointed generation of fans than Angels fans?
I mean, we can get our cousins on the phone. I mean, they were been Angels fans since they were excited about when they got Albert Pujols. That was how long ago was that?
Who was it?
And they never made the playoffs. They signed Albert, never made the playoffs. Albert
Trout
never made the playoffs.
Signed Ohtani.
But maybe it's because you're signing pitchers like Tyler thinking he's your number 2 when he's really your number 5, and he shouldn't get a deal. He should get like a 1-year deal to just help you out a little bit.
There was nothing in this guy's background that made it worth signing. That made him worth signing for anything over $10 million.
For longer than 1 year.
Right. There's nothing that warranted that contract at all.
I mean, would you argue that the Cubs signing of Talion was better than this signing? Because I would argue that was a better signing.
It made more sense at the time.
He just played. This is not just a play badly. We predicted this. This was an easy predictor. When we predicted.
Yeah,
all 3 of us did.
Yeah, you're coming to the Council of Elders, and it's like, hey, by the way, you just might want to back off on this one a little bit. But no, the baseball brains have to do what they got to do.
And there's no prevented hatred for the Angels. We'd like to see them win. It's not like the Rangers where we just want to see them lose. It has nothing to do with our brothers or anything like that. It's strictly we would like something good to happen. But yes, Anderson's a good number 1. I like that as a number 1. That's a lot of money, and it's a waste. Just put it in the garbage disposal. You'd be better off doing, I don't know, you can just leave that on the front porch. You can do a lot of good with that money, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, you could. You absolutely could.
Those are 2 solid number 1s. Todd, what do you got to follow up with your number 1 pick for 2023?
So, listen, when in doubt, go with the Giants because God knows if anybody can sign them, they can. And so once again, I'm looking for a negative WAR. I got that. I'm looking for multi-years. Got that. And I'm looking for something that just makes 0 sense. And so we look at this guy who came from Seattle, playing left field. And so what do the Giants sign him for? They sign him for 3 years, $43.5 million. So they're shelling out $14.5 million a year. Forget these stats. 209 average, 6 home runs, 44 hits,
No.
and 28 RBIs. I give you Mitch the Man Haniger.
How many games did he play this year?
He played in 61 games. I know
that's still bad.
Not huge, but I mean, like, listen.
So if you
got to hit the ball.
Even if you double that, you're talking about 12 home runs. A 203 average is just terrible.
It's 209. His OPS is 631. His on base percentage was 266.
What's his
266?
What was his career stats average wise?
His career is
what is his average? Yeah. What's
his average for his career is 256.
Oh, that's bad. 50 points dropped. Well, I mean,
his on base percentage was basically his career batting average. Can you, I mean, like, just fundamentally, can you imagine playing in the 80s and being taken seriously with a batting average of 209 and an on-base percentage of 266? You wouldn't see the field.
How many years? 3 or 4?
He's got 2 more years. They're stuck with him.
Well, it's the shocking thing about this list, and I know we all did our own list, and I know we made sure we didn't have any crossovers, but we have currently on this list of bad players, we have 2 Giants?
Yeah.
And I think you could mention a couple other honorable mentions in 2023 of that Giants team. The Giants had about 5 or 6 signings in the offseason that have all underperformed. Now, to Dad's point earlier about the Giants, they still outperformed the Padres with all these underperforming players. So it goes to show that the most important hits are the timely hits. And that's the truth about the playoffs. So as you watch the playoffs this year, folks, it's not when you get the hit. It's not the hit. It's when you get it. Because the Braves and the Dodgers are going to be stacked and loaded, and everyone's looking forward to those 2 teams playing each other. But if they get ousted by any of these wildcard teams, it's going to be because of timely hitting in the 8th inning, timely pitching in the 8th inning, 7th inning, and then closing the game out in the 9th. And we all know that the best manager in the playoffs wears Dodger blue. He is by far the worst manager in the playoffs that I've ever seen. And the only World Series, which has an asterisk and should not be counted, is the one that I went to in Ranger Stadium, the only time it will ever be played in Ranger Stadium during the COVID shortened season, where Tampa and the Dodgers used relief pitchers like they were going out of style. They would pitch a 3-inning starter, 4-inning starter, and pitch relievers all the way through. Those 2 teams shockingly make it to the World Series because it's a shortened season. You can pinch these arms 3 innings, 4 innings, and be good. And the Dodgers win it. Everybody was happy for the Dodgers. Shouldn't count. He has blown more games than he has won. 162 game season has always been his nemesis. Dodger manager just doesn't have it in the playoffs.
I got to tell you something, man. When you get a bias, you are brutal. Brutal.
Call it out to see it. I will tell you this, though. The Dodger fans in a COVID spaced out stadium still found the time to get in a fight. That's what I'm talking about. Not with a Tampa fan, because Tampa fans were hard to find. The Dodger fan was fighting another Dodger fan, and they've all got kicked out, which meant there was even more COVID seats for me because they spaced us out so generously.
There you go.
It was a great game. I got to watch the Rays in the massive comeback, which is one of the best endings of any game I've ever seen, with bad throws, bad catches, and bad slides all the way around. It's fantastic ending baseball. So I look forward to a lot of that dramatics. Those are our 6 players of terrible 2023 contracts. The best news about this is BadderSports is going to have more terrible contracts in 2024. We have more free agents. We have more money to give. The inflation rates, the contracts have got to go up. Got to go up to pay the bills. Got to get milk. Got to get gas. Everything's expensive.
Here's my parting tease.
Yes, sir.
Which team is going to step up and mortgage their future for Juan Soto?
I will.
We'll see.
We'll definitely see. I don't think it's the Padres, but I have a team of one of the people here on the panel that I think would absolutely pay money to see Juan Soto as part of that team.
I'm going to give you the hottest of hot takes. Mm-hmm. I would rather mortgage my future on Juan Soto than Shohei Ohtani.
Well, as a Mets fan, you're going to see that in maybe you'll get both of them.
I think we should take. I think we should take that quote, Soto over Ohtani, and put it on Todd's headstone. Because that
next episode, let's cover this because I have a whole thing about Ohtani.
That's a fair statement. These are your 2023 Lemieux list worst contracts. That's our take, and you're free to comment and tell us what we missed. I'm sure there's some that you absolutely hate. Again, our rules: got to play over half a season, or get close. Todd, you got close with Mitch. He got close with 60. That's our show for tonight, everybody. Hope you have a great evening. Drive safe. Enjoy the family. Take your kids to a game. Enjoy it. I'm your host, Brendan. Bye now.
I guess.